Hi everyone. In this video, I'd like to talk about the role of the scapegoat. So this is from an article on my website, which is called childrenofnarcissists.org.uk, if you'd like to go and have a look over there. So let's go and see the role of the scapegoat. Definitions of scapegoat. Someone who is blamed or punished for another's faults or actions. A person or thing that is blamed for something bad that someone else has done. The term scapegoat comes from the biblical story of a goat who is sent out into the wilderness carrying the sins of the tribe. On Yom Kippur, the ancient Hebrews would sacrifice one goat for God and lead another one, over whom all the sins of Israel had been confessed, into the wilderness to bear the sins of the people away. The book of Leviticus, part of the Hebrew Bible, describes the sacrifice of goats during the holiday by throwing goats off of the rocky headlands who have symbolically had the sins of the community placed upon them. Celebrants believe that this slaughter would bring atonement to their communities. The role of a scapegoat in a family. In a narcissistic family system, there are fairly rigid roles for each member. The narcissistic parent, or the one with the most power, often financial, if they are both narcissistic, is the head and their word is law. The co-parent may be an enabling codependent type, and the children are placed into the roles of scapegoat child and its opposite counterpart, the golden child. There can also be the role of the ignored or lost child. Roles tend to be reasonably stable over time, although there can be times when the roles change, i.e., the scapegoat child leaves home, which leaves a vacancy, or a parent uses the scapegoat as a parentified confidant. So the rules are going to change sometimes. The scapegoat child is seen as the problem in the family. They are told they are too sensitive, dramatic, attention-seeking, mad, crazy, evil, or stupid. And the family narrative is that if it weren't for them, everything would be fine. The scapegoat takes on board the negative feelings in the family, and through this process, they are the glue that binds the rest of the family together. The scapegoat serves that role for the whole family, not only for the narcissistic parent. Anger at other family members can be taken out on the scapegoat. This is known as displaced anger. The golden child can be defined as a child who is idealized and is given praise, attention, and resources. They are a mirror of the narcissistic parent's idealized self. The roles of golden child, lost child, and scapegoat child are roles which are forced onto the children by the narcissistic parent. People with narcissistic personality disorder respond to others in a split and compartmentalized way. People or situations are all good or all bad. This is known as black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking, and it can show up in the general population and in a more pathological way in people who have a personality disorder and trauma. Some examples of this way of thinking are: I'm fantastic, I'm pathetic, life is brilliant, life is bad and always will be, I am a success, I am a failure. These polarized ways of thinking are pathological in a person with NPD and can be explained through object relations theory. Object relations looks at an individual's internal representations of important people in their lives and how an individual sees themselves. Whole objects. If we are relating to others as whole objects, then we are able to see both the good and bad in them and hold it in mind simultaneously. We all have good and bad traits and strengths and weaknesses. Individuals who have not attained whole object relations due to an unsupportive childhood environment perceive others in a polarized manner, viewing them as either entirely good or entirely bad. They are unable to integrate positive and negative attributes, instead focusing on only one aspect at a time. People with NPD do not have whole object relations, so they see people as either special and unique or as something worthless and valueless. This means that if you're in the scapegoat role, then the person with NPD only sees a part of you and relates to that part alone. This is going to be something they may be projecting, so their own repressed and dissociated shame, or something they do not like about themselves that they see in you, a neediness or a weakness which they react strongly to, or there's a willingness in the scapegoat to not go along with the regime so readily. So there can be many factors at play, many different reasons for why people are in those roles. Object constancy. Object constancy refers to the ability to maintain a positive connection to someone during times when they feel frustrated, hurt, disappointed, or angry with them. Without object constancy, individuals are more likely to devalue or even physically harm someone. This occurs because during moments of negative emotion, they may temporarily forget all the positive qualities they appreciate in that person, leading to feelings of hatred or contempt. This lack of object constancy is a significant factor in the abuse many individuals experience or witness. Another aspect of object constancy is the ability to remain emotionally connected to someone who is no longer physically present and to vividly recall their face. Without this capacity, a person with NPD can forget others. This is why they frequently turn on those they profess to love and launch vicious attacks against them. NB. The lack of whole object relations and object constancy can be changed over time with hard work, which is self-development, learning about psychological concepts in general, and perhaps having therapy. It can also be the same for children of narcissists, that they can have this issue with whole object relations and with object constancy. So if you watch my videos about CPTSD, that talks about how our defense mechanisms are made up of different parts with different strategies for defending us, and they're quite separate from each other. So this is when you have part-object relations. The role of the scapegoat. The scapegoat role in families and in wider society. Once a child learns the language of being a scapegoat, then they may often find themselves in the position of receiving the displaced anger of other people again, at school, university, work, or in their friendship groups or romantic relationships. Displaced anger. Displaced anger is the way the mind deals with unacceptable or threatening feelings, such as anger, fear, or shame, towards a person by shifting them onto a substitute target that feels safer or more permissible. The substitute target is less intimidating or even powerless, reducing the risk of significant consequences when anger is directed towards them. This phenomenon can be described as a form of emotional redirection, where the individual channels their emotional energy from the original source of distress to an alternative outlet. In a narcissistic family, confronting the narcissistic parent is going to put that person in the firing line of a narcissistic rage or a barrage of criticism, being humiliated or being attacked verbally or physically, or all of the above. Consequently, the individual unconsciously suppresses their anger, but the repressed emotions do not vanish, and instead, they are later expressed towards a more acceptable target, which may be the family scapegoat or another person. Therefore, displacement functions to alleviate anxiety and internal tension by offering an outlet for emotions that would otherwise remain suppressed or lead to inner conflict. Defense mechanisms like displacement can preserve one's ego or self-esteem, and instead of feeling powerless and humiliated, an individual can manage those feelings by later asserting themselves towards someone else. We speak the language of the scapegoat in terms of our bodies. Heads down, shoulders hunched and finding it hard to maintain eye contact. Our tone of voice. We may have a sing-song voice, a higher tone, or an appeasing tone. The way we walk, in our inability to stand up for ourselves a lot of the time. Our inability to say no a lot of the time. And in many other ways, as much of the way we communicate is nonverbal. Scapegoats can be individuals or groups, as scapegoating works on a familial level and on a societal level, and we can see scapegoating at work in sports, politics, and war. As we can see in the interesting video below, predatory people all selected the same person as a potential victim in seconds by the way they walked. So there's a link to a video in this article, and I'll also put a link in the description below. And I'll also put it on one of the cards at the end of this video. It's only 2 or 3 minutes long, I think, and it's very interesting. Finding resolution. We need to work on recognizing our behavioral patterns by developing our self-awareness. We need to learn what boundaries are and how to set them. Many children of narcissists have very porous, which means too relaxed and enmeshed, and sometimes too rigid, meaning we put up a wall to keep other people out. Boundaries. So they're not healthy, they're non-existent or too solid. We can then better stand up for ourselves, and we will feel and be more confident, which others will be able to read. We can pay attention to our own anger and work on recognizing if we are feeling angry towards the people we should be feeling angry towards. Are we guilty of scapegoating people, ourselves, of certain religions, races, or social groups because we are unhappy with ourselves or with something in our own lives? So it's always good to be self-reflective and be more aware of what's really going on in our minds. So I hope that information was useful. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves and bye.